It was actually on July the 10th, 1988, and I can remember that. It was the day of my father's funeral. There was a guest preacher there preaching about casting out the demons. Eventually, the guest minister up on the stage, he must have sensed that something evil was there. And he said, bring him in here. He said, we're not going to do this in the back hallway. And there were like 4 people carrying him, and his body was torqued in all kinds of strange positions, and there was non-human noises coming out of his mouth. So the whole church is praying for this man that they carried in and put on the altar. I couldn't pray for that man. I was praying for me and the person beside of me, because I thought it was going to hop in us. And I can laugh about it now, but I was petrified. I was so scared.
Someone asks you, do you believe in the paranormal? What do you say? Are you a believer, a skeptic, or choose not to think about the subject at all? We grow up with small superstitions and stories that make our hearts race. But once we grow older, we realize not everything is completely true. You most likely won't have 7 years of bad luck if you break a mirror or if a black cat crosses your path. However, those stories introduced us to the idea of the supernatural. We will be sharing the knowledge and stories from paranormal investigators, a historian, and everyday people who have had their own paranormal experiences. We have brought these people together so that they could answer the question, is there more to life?
It really dates back to childhood, going to the school book fair and buying a book on haunted houses, and staying up late at night reading this scholastic book to the point where I was too scared to go to sleep. So that's what really started the whole journey back in 1985. In 1989, my family moved from Indiana to Kentucky, and the home we moved into in Kentucky was really haunted. And it was the first time we ever had experienced anything out of the ordinary in any place that we had lived. The first night we spent in the house was actually on Halloween of 1988. I remember we could hear screams, but we didn't know where these screams were coming from, and we were sleeping in sleeping bags at the time because the furniture hadn't arrived. In that house, you could see black masses would be in the hallway or on the stairwell. Things would disappear and then reappear in really odd places. So living in a house like that up until I graduated and went to college, it really stuck with me. And throughout college, I kept tabs on things in the paranormal community best I could, buying every book I could find, reading what was happening to other people. So one day I was like, okay, I've bought this book and this book and this book. I wanted true stories from Kentucky, and some of the stories, were overlapping in different books by different authors. So my original goal was to write a book detailing people's occurrences in the paranormal in the state of Kentucky, because I knew there had to be more stories out there. So that's why I started Pink. But after about 2 years the whole focus of the team shifted, because we were getting to the point where, we're talking to these families and they were putting a real human aspect onto ghost stories. And you realize that, these people that are contacting you are looking for answers. They need help. They're at their wits' end. They don't know what's going on. And instead of just documenting what these people are telling us, we're going in and investigating to see if we can come up with anything that matches what they're saying and try and offer a solution to what they're going through. And so for 17 years now that the team's been around, that's what we do. We try to help as many people as we can.
I just think because everybody wants to know what's going to happen when we die. I really do. And I think that the paranormal is interesting. Plus, I have a religious aspect to it that is conflicting for me. So, mostly because I do believe there are ghosts, because I think about when Christ rose from the dead, or even before that, when he appeared on the water, the disciples thought he was a ghost. And so my thought always is, why would they think that if ghosts didn't exist? But then on the other side, I believe that, are we really seeing ghosts or are we seeing demons? And that's a really strong, supposition. And a lot of people shy away from that. But I believe that it could be a mix of the two.
Well, it's interesting because I've always been interested in history. I mean, history and ghosts. When I was a kid, I was in special reading groups and stuff like that. I was very smart, but I have dyslexia. So they were always encouraging me to read. And one of my favorite books was a book by a ghost storyteller, or a ghost hunter from England. His name was Elliot O'Donnell, and he wrote about ghosts in England and Ireland and Scotland. And the other thing is, working in the history field, there's always this element of mystery, especially in museums. You can go to any museum in the country, especially if it's an old house or a historic building, and ask them. And if they tell you they don't have some sort of weird things going on that they can't explain, they're lying to you. Well, one of the things that I used to love to do is to go to conferences and listen into ghost stories that people would tell me about their sites. And I've experienced things, my co-workers have experienced things. What really intrigues me is the things that you don't expect, but then it happens. So how do you explain that?
Well, it's made me a believer. I believe in God, and it made me even more understanding of God, because when you see something that evil and you see, how God took care of it, I can't not believe. And I tried to prove it was wrong. I thought, this man is from out of town. He's paid somebody to come in here and behave like that. I just didn't think it was true. And every place I looked, I was shown that, hey, this really did happen.
Well, there are a few theories on what causes activity to ramp up. It could be that the spirit is looking for energy. Everything needs energy, whether you're a ghost or not. You have to have some sort of energy to do what you need to do. And through our investigating, what we're seeing is that in cases of what some people would call an extreme haunting, because something flies across the room or something breaks or shatters, and that it's because they need energy. So the easiest way to get some energy is to scare someone. As soon as you get that startle, your blood pressure goes up, you can feel the heat coming off your arm, and it has this environmental impact that they either A, get a boost from, or B, get enjoyment out of causing a scare. Going back to how personality transcends, some spirits are nice as can be, friendly and polite. Some people are jerks. So if you are nice in life and you're still hanging around, you're still nice. If you were a jerk in life and you're still hanging around, you're a jerk, and you're going to do things to make other people's lives miserable. And because what else are you going to do? So you get a kick out of harassing people, pretty much. Some other things: man-made electronics, old wiring that throws off an electromagnetic field. The theory is that entities use that electromagnetic field to materialize and cause things to happen. So it could be a natural factor, it could be a man-made factor. You just never know what kind of mood they're going to be in.
I also wonder about the thinness between one world and the other. Is the aspect of something that has kind of come through, and they're in their everyday life and we're in our everyday life, but somehow they step through and then back into where they were. And that really interests me.
There's a theory in relativity that all things happen at once and time is relative. So is it possible that people are witnessing things or have a ability to see, through time? I had a colleague of mine, and she went out to a museum, actually went out to visit her boyfriend who was working in a museum in New England. And they were in his apartment together, and they were in bed and trying to sleep. And a guy walked into their room, turned left, walked through the foot of their bed, turned right, and went out the wall. They both saw it. They what the hell was that? So the next day they go to the museum where he worked, and they were curious about what that site was, because they were in this new apartment. Well, as it turns out, 100 years ago, there was a factory there, and they had the blueprints of the factory, and they put the blueprints of the apartment complex over the blueprints of the factory, and they discovered that guy that walked through there, that was a catwalk, and it fit exactly through their apartment.
The whole idea, whether a place can record something, if somehow, because it's energy that's being expelled through whatever happens, you would think that, or I don't know if you would think, but I know one theory I've heard is that the area actually captures it. And that when we see things like someone walking through a wall, or we hear a boom or a noise, that it's just a recorder, that something has happened that's made the circumstances just right, that it releases that recording. And so that's, I think, a very interesting theory as well.
If, say, you passed away and decided to hang around, right? Because some faiths believe that man was given free will. We're free to believe, we're free not to believe. It's up to us, right? If you're still hanging around on the other side, do you still have that free will? Was there a light there for you? Did you have an opportunity to go into it? Did you decide to stay back for whatever reason? And I think that's what we're looking at. People that have died, they might have been taught that, whatever you did in life was wrong and you're going to hell for it. And, maybe that's not necessarily true. Maybe that's just the way you were taught. So when they die, they might be afraid of that judgment and might decide to stick around. But then again, they might decide to go on to that light, right? If you have something that's keeping you here, we try to talk them through, what's keeping them anchored. Are they there because they don't want something to happen to their prized possession? Are they there because they're afraid of being judged for something that they shouldn't be judged for, and that sort of thing? So, we try to talk to them, not at them, because I honestly believe, they were people too.
In my heart, yeah, I believe in ghosts. I believe in spirits. I feel pretty certain about it. But I still would like to see I want to see a ghost in front of me disappear. You know what I mean?
The best way I can put it is I have 17 years worth of audio files of voices that don't belong to anybody who is anywhere near the recording device. And these devices don't pick up radio waves, radio signals, or anything like that. They're just simply an audio recording device that will record sounds above and below the range of the human ear. And on playback, you get some voices, and they don't belong. So there has to be something else to it.
I'm here along for the ride just like everybody else. And I will tell you something that I learned a long time ago. And that was nobody knows any more about the universe than you do. And there's so many things in this life that we take for granted that are just a belief and not necessarily a truth. And it's really hard, and we get it, and it seems to be bubbling to the surface quite a bit, because people will say that, conspiracy theories and all this other stuff with no proof. But we have a long legacy, civilization does, of believing things because we want to believe them, not necessarily because they're true. It's very important. If you do believe in God, God gave us our brains to think. And I don't think that he or she wants us to just accept things the way they are. Always question, always be open to the possibilities. And I think the world becomes a different place when you approach it that way.
I do believe there's more to life. I don't understand it. I don't know why some people would be stuck, not going on and you know, not being here. And I believe there is good angels and there is evil, and I will stay with the good.